What's going on, all you gamers? Today we're going to be jumping into a bit more Diablo 4, and I'm going to be letting you know what I am undoubtedly going to be picking Barbarian as my first class to main as soon as the game is released. If you want to know why I'll be picking Barbarian, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. So after sinking about 80 hours into the demo, trying out all the classes, and just kind of coming to the realisation that some are very overpowered early game, there's one class that I've settled on to try straight away when the game's released, and that is going to be none other than the Barbarian. In my opinion, the Barbarian is one of the very best designed characters I've seen in a very long time, proper fits exactly the style you're going for, and looks absolutely amazing. And after playing the demo, I think there's one thing we can all agree, he was an absolute monster. More survivability than any other class, and just able to wreak havoc and devastate all of your foes, with almost no issues to his health. Okay, if you played the beta, no doubt you 100% found out that the Barbarian is probably not the best early game. So if you're a hardcore player, or if you're someone who's looking to just absolutely smash through the content, then Barbarian may not be the easiest choice, because he definitely takes a bit of work, especially that early game. However, the reason I'm picking him is probably not for the same reason as a lot of other people. To me, after playing an absolute abundance of similar games to this, and of course all the previous Diablos as well, I think this is one of the best classes I've seen for actually weighted gameplay. When you're playing with the Barbarian, even though he is not at the very start doing too much damage, his strikes, his special moves, and pretty much his whole moveset in general just feels weighted and feels really good to me. So I can tell further down the line, once I start perfecting his builds and such, it's going to allow some absolute great gameplay. And whereas on some of the other classes, like the longer range ones of Necro and Sorcerer, you may not even work out some of the boss mechanics because you'll be able to dwindle their health down quite fast, or just completely stay at range, pretty much away from anything that's going to hinder you. With the Barbarian, this is definitely not an option. You have to work out the boss mechanics, you have to use your dodge, you have to use your survivability options, and I think once you do fully put a build together for this class, it's really going to shine, and the payoff is going to be more so than most of the other classes in the game. Combat in general with the Barbarian feels absolutely amazing, but his damage potential at the start is probably not the highest out of all the classes. However, due to the fact that he will actually be able to carry 2 more weapons than any other class, means that you'll be able to give him more aspects, and if some of them are truly powerful late game, then on those endgame builds he could be very viable and a lot of fun to play, and I found being able to run him in sort of hybrid builds also worked amazingly well. Going over his skill tree, and he has some very standout skills. Flay, allowing you to get some bleed damage, can be a great option, especially if you're trying for that single target damage, as well as Upheaval, for probably a little bit more multi-ad clearing, and some absolutely devastating damage as you start to raise your stats. For survivability, Challenging Shout is one of the best in the game, and once you start stacking your points into this, it can mean the difference between falling over with pretty much one shot, or becoming very durable. In fact, even on this boss here, I had far from a perfect build. As you can see, I didn't have Unstoppable, which you definitely want on a Barbarian, and my aspects were absolutely all over the place, but I'd gone from being punished and destroyed by this boss to being able to take quite a few hits and being able to dish out enough damage in order to take him down, just from having a few tweaks on the Barbarian's build. Definitely far from perfect, and some other classes will have taken him down a lot faster, but once you do overcome these hurdles on the Barbarian, you start to get a very big sense of satisfaction. Another great thing, he's got some really nice aspects in his Codex of Power. Aspect of Tempering Blow may well be one you want to look at, because Fortify is going to be a very big thing on Barbarian, and it also helps you a bit of damage if you spec your tree out right. whereas Aspect of the Iron Warrior may well be one you want to look into if you need a little bit more mitigation in your build and if you're missing Unstoppable. Like I was, if I was able to pick this up, which you definitely can't in the demo, but having this on a build would make it much more viable in those crowd control situations. For a nice bit of damage, Aspect of the Ancestral Echoes is definitely going to come into play on a lot of builds. It's going to be revolving around Leap, Upheaval and Whirlwind, which almost definitely most Barbarian builds will be revolving around. And lastly, something you'll definitely want to spec into, whether it be this or on a legendary weapon of some sort or just some way in your skill tree, you're going to want to make sure that you're able to generate some of your Fury. Without your Fury, you will be absolutely awful, you won't be able to spam any abilities, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So make sure you've got something that can generate Fury, and that'll make your Barbarian builds much more viable and a lot more fun to play. Ultimately, I don't think the demo really showcased how powerful the Barbarian's going to be once he gets his mastery, once you manage to find some really powerful aspects, and you've got a nice build together. I believe Barbarian will have mitigation, regen, an abundance of damage, and will be an absolute abundance of fun to play, so the payoff will definitely be worth it. But yeah, let me know in the comments. I could be completely wrong and he could be awful at launch, but I've got a feeling he's going to be one of the top classes once you get to that endgame. Let me know who you're thinking about picking and what you thought of Barbarian in the beta. But as always, for all things gaming, take care. I'll see you on the next day.